Buck Levasseur showed us the Upper Peninsula for over 30 years. It's time for a look back. It's time for rediscovering.
Last week I traveled to Isle Royale National Park for the annual summer get-together with the Isle Royale Boaters Association. This year's meeting was at Windigo on the western end of the island, so they could dedicate an outstanding pavilion that they donated to the park.
It's a great gift that the Isle Royale Boaters Association has given to the park, really. It was badly needed. You know, it wasn't going to happen anytime soon, and because they took the initiative to work with the park, suggested the project, and they went out and did fundraising, they did the planning and ordered supplies and worked with the park on logistics and getting everything here, and then came over here with a huge crew of volunteer laborers that were part of the membership of the Boaters Association. So, and with park staff, built that beautiful pavilion.
Up next on Discovering, a return visit to Isle Royale National Park for this year's Boaters event, which includes a visit to a historic commercial fishing cove. So stick around. It's Monday night, and a tradition for 26 years. Upper Michigan's very own Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
Hi everybody, welcome to Discovering. Well, tonight we travel back to beautiful Isle Royale National Park. Now the weather wasn't as good as it's been in the past couple of years, but every time you go to Isle Royale, it's a new experience. The weather here at Isle Royale National Park can be beautiful and calm one moment and wild and windy on the next. The restored Isle Royale Lighthouse at Middle Island Passage is also a museum, one that features displays of Isle Royale lighthouses and maritime history. There you'll find a picture that describes our first stop of this year's adventure. A typical Isle Royale North Shore fishing boat, unloading barrels of fish offshore on one of the cargo and passenger vessels like the America. Well, this was a familiar scene for commercial fishermen who lived in tiny coves too shallow for the large vessels. One such place is Fisherman's Home Cove, located about midway on the south shore of Isle Royale. Fisherman's Home has a number of old buildings that enables visitors to see what life was like for a fisherman's family a century ago. Since the early turn of the century, Fisherman's Home has been occupied by the Rood family. Mark Rood of Duluth still stays here in the summer, and he recalls the area's history.
The history as I know it dates back to the late 1800s when a gentleman named Elling Seglum settled here to become a commercial fisherman, and he built, there's a building right up there that he put together and one here, and anyway he and his wife and the hired man stayed out here and fished, and in 1919 Elling lived in Duluth actually in the wintertime, as did my grandfather, and my grandfather had injured a leg and they were friends, so Elling said, why don't you come out to Isle Royale while you're recovering, while the hay fever won't bother you. And my grandfather took him up on it, and when he got out here he really liked what he saw. Elling offered him a job that fall to work with him in commercial fishing, in the fall fishery. And grandfather took him up on it and liked fishing, so in 1921 he moved down here, built a cabin and a fish house, and got a fishing license, and our family had been here then since 1921. After my grandfather had 9 kids, and of the 9 children, my dad happened to be the one that worked with him on commercial fishing, and then ultimately when grandfather retired, my dad took over the fishery and operated it until his death in '75, and then my mother had the license, and I came back and worked it from 1980 till '87 when she passed away. So that's kind of the history of the place. It's been pretty much a commercial fishery since the late 1800s.
It's kind of treacherous navigating around here, isn't it?
It is, like many places around Isle Royale, there's a lot of rocks that stick up suddenly and shallow, and so if you don't watch where you're going and don't know where you're going, you can get into a lot of trouble. But once you become familiar with it, it's like any place else. It's pretty easy to get into and out of.
Well, folks, I wish this was smell-o-vision, because I just can't describe the scent of wildflowers like the roses that are found everywhere here at Fisherman's Home. Mark's mother had quite a garden when she was still out here, and the remnants remain today. But what's the future of Fisherman's Home?
The park has not indicated any immediate desire to have me vacate the premises. I work as a volunteer in the park since my mother died, and there was no more commercial assessment fishing allowed here. The park enlisted me as a volunteer in the park, and when folks stop in, I may do interpretive tours and things like that. So I would imagine that when I depart from this earth, that unless the philosophy of the park changes, I would guess that I would be the last of our original families to stay here, to occupy the place.
Mark is a longtime member of the Isle Royale Boaters Association, and he was one of many, mostly North Shore members, that generated the ways and means to build the Pavilion at Windigo. For the 3rd year in a row, I traveled to the island aboard the Skipper, owned by association member Don Hanula of Lake Linden. Also along, a good first mate, Norm Virula of Republic. Well, after 2 nights at Fisherman's Home, we decided the lake was good enough to make the near 30-mile journey to Washington Harbor and Windigo. The lake was rough, so we just took our time. Once at Windigo, we got a good look at the finished pavilion, and I must say its construction was top-notch. The passenger ferry Voyageur 2 out of Grand Portage, Minnesota, arrived at the Windigo dock shortly after we did, and some folks got on and others off. But we quickly saw the value of the new pavilion and what it means to these park visitors. We'll be there for its dedication plus a whole lot more when Discovering returns following these messages.
Be sure to check out the 906 Outdoor Show, Sunday mornings at 7 Central, 8 Eastern on Fox UP.
Washington Harbor and Windigo is an interesting part of Isle Royale National Park. Once a private hunting and fishing club, Windigo was later converted to a ranger station with docks, campgrounds, and trailheads. There's gasoline available for boaters and a store for visitors. It's one of the island's better places to see moose, whose numbers, according to last year's winter census, had dropped to about 350 animals. Quite a few members of the Isle Royale Boaters Association from Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Upper Michigan made it to Windigo for this summer's meeting and get-together. Well, the lake was rough at times, but these boaters are experienced and some of the best. Well, the mission of the Isle Royale Boaters Association is to educate, represent, and promote the interest of power and sailboaters, sport fishermen, canoeists, kayakers, backpackers, and all visitors to Isle Royale. The building of the Pavilion at Windigo is a perfect example of the new cooperation that is developing between the association and the Park Service. You know, it always hasn't been that way. A few years ago, the association sued the Park Service over management policy. But a new park administration is in place, and it's helped bridge the gap. Assistant Park Superintendent Betsy Rossini.
It was probably about 5 years ago that the park and the Boaters Association started trying to do some kind of an annual work project, and I think the first project was at Malone Bay, and we worked together, made a picnic area down there at Malone, and then there's been several other projects. Another one down here at Windigo too, which was a building to house spill response equipment. And I believe that the relationships have improved greatly, and I think we're all thinking positively and happy to be working together and trying to do good things for the park and the public and the boating community.
I asked Betsy about two concerns the association had. One was a surcharge on items such as gasoline. The association contends the charge was unfair, and this year it was removed, dropping the price of gas from $5.07 to about $4.30 a gallon.
And hopefully that'll be something that will continue into the future. We don't know that for certain now, but we were able to get a 1-year waiver for the concession. So, it's kind of an experimental thing. And and that was one of the great results of it, was the price of gas dropped quite a bit. So.
Well, I think another fear that this group has is a reservation system at docks. Where does that plan stand now?
Well, at this point, that's not really being pushed forward as anything that's going to happen in the near future or ever at this point. So, there may be a couple of special circumstances in the park that might have a reservation system, but it would be something more like with a historic cabin and a dock, where people would not so much be reserving the dock spaces, reserving the right to use that cabin. And that might be something that could happen in the future that would have a reservation system tied to it. But as far as reservations on docks park-wide, that's not being proposed.
Well, Friday night is a special night as Chef Don Hanula led his guys cooking up 130 pounds of ribs. Others brought salads and sweet corn and desserts. What a feast! And everyone was invited, especially Park Service personnel and rangers at Windigo, who helped make this an enjoyable stay.
Keep going, keep going. great. Isn't this nice? It's too bad we have to be all bundled up, but...
Well, the pavilion was great because it was raining pretty good out there. Well, many of these guys want to hit the bunks early, for tomorrow is the annual fun fishing tournament. Now, conditions were predicted to be choppy, and they were.
Should have been here earlier.
One of the favorites in the bobbing division is Team Frosty Freeze of Lawrence. John Evans and his crew aboard Miss Laurie often do well, but like many of the boats out here, they're fishing new territory on the West End, near the Rock of Ages reefs. Well, the guys were landing quite a few fish on jigs and spoons, but no real big ones to speak of.
This might be our 3 biggest.
Here, Team Fat Boy of Duluth are out trolling, trying to take bragging rights back to Minnesota. Well, they'll need a bigger fish than that. Or how about a bigger boat? Bill and Patty Seiler of Houghton are teamed up with Carol and John Drew aboard the Water Witch. Nice fish, Patty, but look out for that reef.
It's a great day to fish. Of course, every day is a great day to fish.
Well, Don, Norm, and I checked all the boats we could find, so we started back for the weigh-in. But along the way, we stopped to take a look at the shipwreck site of the steamer America, lost in 1928. It's a popular sport diving location. The weigh-in at Windigo was short and light as compared to the years the event is held at the East End in Rock Harbor. They did, however, get enough for the fish fry that the association will put on after the meeting. Everyone at Windigo was invited, campers, boaters, park personnel, everyone. First place overall weight for 3 fish went to Team Frosty Freeze of Lawrence. They brought in 30 pounds. That's John Evans, Mike Odie LeClaire, Barry Drew, and John Spook Messer.
It's the same crime.
A little cash in the back. But they also get the Trollers Trophy as well. So, come on, you guys. Stand up here. Oh, he's giving the money back there.
Second overall weight and the Trollers Trophy went to Team Water Witch of Houghton, John and Carol Drew, and Bill and Patty Seiler. And third place went to the Minnesotans, Team Creative Touch, Mickey and Dave.
Come on, Mick. We were using your lures today, you know.
And then Isle Royale Boaters Association President Dave Hand gave out the award for the biggest fish of the day, a 14-pounder caught by Sue Falconer of Minnesota. She was trolling with her husband Bear and friend Chuck Townsend, shown here holding her fish aboard the boat Nasty Habit. Ironically, Chuck caught the biggest fish, a 28-pounder, last year on that same boat.
They weren't very big. Cash in the back, too. Okay? Nice. Oh, she'll get back to association. I like that. I like that. There we go. All right. Okay.
Well, then it was time for a new trophy, the Wooden Herring Award, a traveling trophy for the best effort from Minnesota or the UP of Michigan. Well, this year the UP got it. Congratulations, guys. Well, then it was time for the Pavilion dedication, and I'll have that when Discovering returns following these messages.
This building was built primarily through the efforts of the West End part of the lake. We had some fundraisers and raised some money and decided upon a project. And one of the prime movers and shakers in this organization early on was Dave Johnson, who unfortunately passed away a year ago of cancer. But early on, he contacted Kreck and Ojard, who was the engineering architectural firm who designed this. He also was able to secure at a substantial discount for us the materials, all the wood for this, the bolts and the metal plates. If you look up, I don't know for sure how we got them. I'm not even sure if we paid for them. I think he was instrumental in getting them anyway, because he works for Two Harbors Machine Shop, and I'm not sure who paid for them. But at any rate, he got them for us anyway. So really, his efforts were invaluable in this. So when we built it, we decided that we'd like to do something, because he made many, many, many trips over here, and so we decided we would see if we could get this dedicated to him. So we contacted the parts service, and they said that would be fine. So that's the reason that we are here. And if you haven't noticed, but on the outside of this beam, there's a plaque that says dedicated to Dave and so on. When we built this and had it dedicated to Dave, we needed to present it to the Park Service in Dave's honor. And of course, you know, we were concerned that they would not be able to get in the building, so we had a key made for them. So Betsy, on behalf of the Boaters Association, here are the keys to the facility.
Keep it locked at all times. No, thank you. And I want to say thank you very much to the Boaters Association for this wonderful gift that you have given to Isle Royale National Park. And it truly is a gift. You know, it's a gift to the park. It's a gift to all the visitors that come here. It really felt like a gift last night when, you know, we had a roof over our heads. And it was delightful. I mean, it was cold and chilly outside, but it was just a wonderful shelter. I know that almost everybody in this room had some sort of hand in making this happen.
And unfortunately, we're out of time, and I'll wrap up our visit on next week's show. See you then.